Shipyard Briefing, Factors in the Potential Catch. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. And also welcome back to the Brook Cherith. It is incredible. It is also amazing just to see what the Lord is doing here at this very late hour. So much that He has shown us about the geopolitical time, the celestial time, the prophetic time, all coming together, reminding us about what is so beautifully portrayed on the last page of the Bible. The heart of our bridegroom, but also our job as fishers of men, and that ties in with the celestial portrayal as well. So much reminding us to redeem the time, not just watch it waste and whittle away. We are told to redeem the time and occupy till He comes with our job, doing our job, to be found doing our job with our loins girded and with our lights burning. And with this New Year's, in a way, we have a clean slate, just a reminder to apply ourselves even more so. So much the more as we see the day approaching. And especially seeking His face for wisdom of what He's trying to show us about this time, how we can redeem the time, and how we can make a powerful impact as we load up and launch out into the deep, letting down the nets for a draft of fishes that He is showing us here at this incredible prophetic time. And so, friend, today we're going to look at a lot of different factors on the opportunity that He appears to be showing us how large it is, and that's what I want you to really see, the scope of the impact with what He is showing us, based on what He has already had us rehearse, but also what is coming together now with all the factors of the field and location, a bunch of other things we're going to look at today, just starting to get a glimpse of, wow, the Lord has an incredible, huge opportunity here if we just go forward in faith and grab a hold of it and be the servants of God who will utilize the opportunities in ministry, the open door and the effectual that He's placing right in front of us. And as we look at what the Lord is working, how His hand is so beautifully working, so many things together here at the Brook Cherith, that also shows us His heart by what He is orchestrating to make possible this incredible opportunity. In our recent briefing video, we talked about the earthquake scenarios that will accompany World War III, as well as the New Madrid fault that's in this area as well, and just how the Lord seems to have placed the Brook Cherith in a very unique place that will be able to ride out some of these incredible earthquakes and some of the sudden destruction that comes on the world at the very beginning of the tribulation. The Lord seems to have placed the Brook Cherith in a very unique, very deliberate position. So we looked at the New Madrid fault line, how that's definitely going to impact so many states in this area, the eastern side of America too as well. But we touched a little bit on Yellowstone, and one of our subscribers had a question about what would the potential impact of Yellowstone erupting have on the Brook Cherith here in Alabama. And so if you do a little bit of looking online, I suggest you do searches along ancient and modern eruptions. Mount St. Helens gives us a really good correlation, something that we've observed in modern times. But geologists can tell from different ash deposits that are in the geological layers that when Yellowstone did erupt in the past, that it affected a very large area, almost the entire western side of America, pretty much all the way from the Mississippi River all the way to the western coast. So it is incredible when we consider the Bible does tell us sudden destruction's coming. And it tells us that there's going to be a huge die-off of people. A quarter of the world's population is going to die in the four horsemen of the apocalypse when they come onto the scene at the beginning of the tribulation. And so when we also see and consider everything else that Scripture lays out happening apparently concurrently too, with all the volcanoes and the earthquakes going off at the same time too. When we look at the American situation and the potential of all the fault lines and the dormant volcanoes, that all of that's going to be popping off, the western side of America is going to be largely uninhabitable. Because again, just going by the ash fall deposits that are already in the geological records, there's going to be many states where you're not going to be able to breathe. Your car's not going to be able to work because the filter's going to be clogged up. The situation is going to be so much like Mount St. Helens if Yellowstone goes off, and all the dormant volcanoes over there too at the same time. So this is interesting how the Lord is having us consider what the Scriptures say is going to happen at the beginning of the tribulation, when sudden destruction comes. And all of these factor into our analysis of how can we best redeem the time now and to make an impact in the days ahead. Particularly when we know certain areas are going to be very subject to sudden destruction and complete, utter destruction, ashfall, and totally uninhabitable. When we consider certain areas like that, we know best to redivert our resources and times elsewhere where we'll have a better return on the time, a better redemption of the time and resources. So definitely seek the Lord for wisdom at this time, because he's bringing up this subject, and we've studied it in that recent briefing. What does Scripture say is coming? It tells us this so that it can hedge our understanding, so we can give the proper analysis to where we are and how we can best be in service for our King here at this threshold when we know all this is about to pop off. The sun destruction is about to come and will impact a quarter of the world's population. What is coming is on such a large scale that we have no frame of reference for it, really. But we just know that the impact is going to be very large. And so just looking at the geological record, we know that if Yellowstone goes off and all those dormant volcanoes over there too, there's going to be at least 0.2 inches of ashfall up even into Louisiana. And so then beyond that, yes, you'll still have a pretty good noticeable dusting, and that's going to be also in the air, which is going to affect a lot of people with asthma and emphysema and respiratory ailments as well. So there's going to be ash. We would see and notice it for sure in Alabama, but it would definitely be a very large nuisance, and you'd have to take that into account with generator filters and all sorts of water filters too as well. So it would be a problem, but nowhere near as on the other side of the Mississippi. And of course, if Yellowstone goes off, again, just look at the size of the spread of the ash from Yellowstone that they know has happened geologically and from other volcanoes on the western coast too. Once those volcanoes go off and all the ash is thrown up in the upper atmosphere, especially the high atmosphere where it's going to linger for a long time, if the rapture and the start of the tribulation happens in late winter or early spring, you're not going to see a summer or spring at all. It's just going to stay cold because all that ash thrown up into the atmosphere is going to significantly cut down the amount of sunlight and heat reaching down to the surface area. So you're going to see continuation of the cold and winter conditions. If, again, the tribulation happens in late winter or early spring, it's just going to stay cold. Very cold. Very, very cold, because it's not going to warm up. There's not going to be a summer at all. It's just going to be a very mild spring. A very mild spring, if at that. So the world, particularly America, is going to rapidly change if Yellowstone and all those dormant volcanoes go off, which it appears that will easily happen. But over here on the eastern coast, it will be more bearable with the ash and fallout conditions, particularly here in Alabama, down in the southern part. And so all these are major factors that we have to consider and factor into our analysis of how can we best redeem the time. How can we best minister to those who will be here during the tribulation? What resources can we set aside for them? Knowing, are there going to be any survivors in our area because of volcanoes and major earthquakes? Is it better to redivert my resources and time and energy somewhere else that has a much higher rate of survival? And so we must ask the Lord for wisdom on all these and factor it in and seek His face, particularly when He's giving us clarity that Scripture talks about all this. And so in this briefing today, we're going to look at some of these major factors that are driving some of the major decisions here with the Book Cherith planning, but also shows the opportunity and the scale from what He is showing us. And there's different decisions that are coming into play with planning out how to meet the tribulation saints' needs and minister to those during the tribulation. We can't just make willy-nilly decisions and say, oh, let's try this, or this sounds cool, or let's do this. No. We have to factor in, what does Scripture say? What does Scripture say will happen? That is what is going to happen. And just being mindful that when it does happen, it's probably going to be a lot more stark than we would be comfortable thinking too. And it's going to be very ugly, very ugly. So we always have to consider worst case scenarios, particularly since we don't have a frame of reference for that large of a scale of sun destruction. And so as we consider how we can apply ourselves to redeeming the time, one model I like to think of is a hanging mobile. Just like you would have sometimes over a baby's crib to keep them occupied, or sometimes you see different hanging mobiles, different artwork in offices and whatnot. But it's unique to observe them because they're perfectly balanced. They have the right sized objects hanging at different places, the right amount of string and all that. Everything is perfectly balanced, because if you have too much weight on one side, that's going to throw off everything else on the other side. It's just not going to work. It's not going to look great at all. Everything has to be perfectly balanced with a little bit of wiggle room. But you have to factor in the size and the weight and all that. There's a lot of factors that come together that can throw off the whole thing. And so we have to consider this with any ministry opportunity or potential ministry outreach for those in the days ahead. factor in as much as possible so that it remains balanced. Balanced with reality, but balanced also with the expectations. And when the Lord is showing us in so many ways, launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a draft, a whole haul of fish, that is one of the main factors, particularly the more that we see the scope of the sudden destruction that's coming, how that will affect the net, what is the potential for the opportunity, what is the potential for the catch, which of course then drives what size nets do we need, what size vessels do we need. Because if we don't have everything sized just right, it'll all be thrown off and it'll collapse, and then we will lose fish and we will lose the potential catch. So we have to factor in as much as possible, but make sure it all balances out. Now, of course, one of the major factors with this potential catch is with the state of Alabama. Back to that subject. What is the broad picture? What is the location? This is why we've been studying this sun destruction that's coming. The earthquake potential with World War III that's also going to be breaking out at the same time. Looking at the location where the Lord has us, with a lot that's going to be falling out on America, more on the western side apparently, and of course closer to the east coast as well too. But the location is very important because that highlights the Lord's hand in purposefully placing and preparing a place here as well. So when we look at the state of Alabama, Shelby is almost directly in the middle of it. We are in central Alabama, right between the two major cities of Montgomery and Birmingham. Montgomery is the capital of Alabama, but Birmingham is a much larger city. Now, statistically, the federal government lumps together 6 counties, calling it the Birmingham-Hoover, Alabama Metropolitan Statistical Area, and that area has a population of roughly 1.11 million people, right within these 6 counties right here. Birmingham is a huge city, and it has its outer suburbs, and pretty much the suburbs of Birmingham extend for quite a ways. So within the statistical area of the greater Birmingham area, there is 1.11 million people. And it catches my attention that the Lord has placed the brook Cherith right within the statistical area. But in a rural area and setting, that won't be as impacted as some of the more urban areas within the statistical area. Let's zoom in a bit. Shelby is a little town in the county of Shelby as well, both called Shelby. We don't even have a stoplight. That's how small the town is. It's a real small town. But it's directly between the two major arteries, the highways that go up to Birmingham, Highway 65 and 280. Which means here in Shelby we have good access to either artery. And some of the roads, because of the back roads, we have a great versatility in navigation by being between these two arteries. So when we look at a zone of just 30 minutes drive from Shelby, that gives you an idea that both these major arteries that feed into Birmingham are easily within reach of where we are, the brook Cherith. Now there's 2 major hospitals somewhat nearby. They're both about 25 minutes away. And that's on a good day. But both of them are right by the highway, Highway 65. Which means on a bad traffic day, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting into the one closer to Birmingham because it is right on the main drag right there. But this also is very alarming because once sun destruction comes and the earthquakes and the outbreak of World War III, you're not going to be able to get anywhere near those hospitals. Mainly because they're almost right on the highway. So they're going to be instantly overloaded and swamped. And with all the traffic confusion right there in those areas already closer to Birmingham, it's going to be a royal mess. It's going to be a parking lot on the highway anywhere near Birmingham. You're not going to be able to get to any of these major medical facilities. And so this is one of the driving factors of why we've been focusing on the medical aspect here at the brook Cherith, because you're not going to be able to go anywhere. Just because of where we are and knowing how bad the roads and highways are here, how easily they get shut down on a good day. Once sudden destruction comes, you're not going to be able to get anywhere near these hospitals. And they're going to be overloaded already as it is. And particularly, again, there's a certain stretch of these highways, the more you get closer to Birmingham, they're known for just being backed up, particularly when there's accidents. And even when there's not an accident, just from the volume of people commuting into Birmingham every single day, I really don't know how they do it, because some of those stretches of highways, when you look at them going to work in the morning or getting off of work, the highway is almost at a standstill because it's just crawling. And that's just people trying to get off at the different exits and all that. It's literally almost at a standstill on a good day. at certain peak times. And so I always have to keep that in mind if I'm going to a store in that area. I just have to make sure that everybody's not getting off work at that moment, because it's going to be a royal headache getting anywhere and getting back home, because the highway and roads are going to be a mess. So again, when we think of sun destruction coming, with all the accidents that are going to happen on the highways, people traveling at high speeds and watching their phones and all that, that whole strip, that whole highway between both of these hospitals is going to become a parking lot. It's going to become a parking lot. And that includes the lesser local highway off the main interstate too as well, which people use as a back road. Even that gets clogged up for miles. Literally miles, just by people commuting. But one unique thing about where the Lord has placed Brook Cherith is, I shared this back in 2021, if an accident happens on that stretch of interstate and shuts it down, what you see is immediately people coming from the south trying to go up to Birmingham, they will automatically redirect their traffic with their GPS and whatnot. They will have to redirect through Shelby, right through our town here. Because it's an off-road, it's a rural road, it hardly gets any traffic, very light traffic. And so it's not going to be easily shut down. Even when sun destruction comes, or when there's a major accident, the highway backs up for miles and miles and miles. And you'll have a lot of people redirecting to go to this back road to go up through Shelby so they can get to Birmingham. It's crazy. I've seen it so many times. You're coming home from the post office, and in this little quiet town of Shelby, all of a sudden you see this non-stop line of cars coming through town. You're like, where's all these people coming from? And sometimes you mistake it for a funeral, because it's like, wow, that's a lot of people. But then you check the news and, oh, wow, they're redirecting all the traffic through our little town here. Because this is a very important crossroads right here at Shelby between these two main arteries leading up to Birmingham, which is the main center of the statistical area that has 1.11 million people in it, right here. One of the major arteries redirects right through Shelby, right where we're at. And there's a lot of people in this area. It is very common for people to commute 30, 40 minutes to work from this area, across this whole area. And so again, we're looking here at a zone of 30-minute drive, and you consider if people go to work on the day of sun destruction and it happens, there's going to be people coming from 40-minute drives all over the place trying to get back home, crisscrossing this whole area. And because of the lake that goes right through there, that's one of the reasons why people have to go through this line that cuts through Shelby. It's because of the lake. So when sun destruction comes, there's going to be a lot of non-stop trickling traffic coming non-stop through Shelby. Right here, almost right by the very door of the Brook Cherith. So it's very interesting to see how the Lord has placed the Brook Cherith on a road that is not normally busy, so that when sun destruction comes, it won't have much interference. It won't become a parking lot right away just because there's not a lot of traffic on it normally. You will still be able to navigate the large portion of this back road between these arteries because of where we're placed, which means a large volume of redirecting traffic will come through here. Almost a non-stop trickle of cars and vehicles. And because of the crossroads right there, you could put up 3 large signs redirecting people to a Rapture Library, just 3 of them, right at that intersection, covering the east and west and north portions of that crossroads right there. And you could easily redirect and capture people's attention of, hey, the rapture just happened, rapture info this way. You could redirect a good majority of that constant stream of vehicles right to your doorstep because of how they come together right here. How it all comes together right at Shelby. So this is a very large factor when I'm looking at the field, considering the highways and the general population, the traffic that goes up to Birmingham, how it's normally turned into a parking lot whenever there's a major accident, and how so much traffic redirects through our little town. And how you could very easily redirect it when people are aware that something major just happened, was at the rapture, and then they see the sign of, hey, rapture information this way, just right up the road. You could get a full stream all day long of traffic coming to your place just with that. And so when I look at the Brook Cherith, when I look at the field that the Lord is showing us right in front of us, what I see is a giant parking lot. That's what I see, a giant parking lot, because I see in my mind the huge amount of traffic, and all I can see is, wow, you're going to need a large place to put all that traffic. Because I've seen the traffic that comes through our town when they redirect traffic. And if it was redirected somewhere for a Rapture Library, you would need a massive parking lot. You would need that. And so when I look at the field, I'm seeing a parking lot a parking lot that you use for a rapture library. And so this is one of the biggest factors that I consider and peg everything to, is there is going to be a whole bunch of people, hundreds upon hundreds of people that could show up on the first day of the rapture. How do you handle that many fish? How do you make a net to handle that many fish just suddenly pouring in non-stop onto your campus? How can you handle that? That is a major factor. It's a good factor to have to deal with, but it is a large factor that drives so many other decisions. So many other decisions that you can't easily work around without throwing everything off balance. And so here's the most recent rendition of possible use and layout of the Brook Cherith using the field that is in the front. And there are 500 vehicles shown parked here. In this parking lot, there are 500 vehicles. That includes in the staff areas as well too. But there's 500 vehicles. And so before you can start making further decisions, you have to get a real good grasp of how many fish are going to be showing up. How many fish are going to be showing up? Because that's going to change everything. Will we need a bigger boat? Will we need bigger nets? Will we need a bigger boat? It's all going to depend on how many fish are going to show up. And I'm planning for very generous parking because I know people are going to be panicked. They're going to be out of their mind, trying to wonder what's going on, very concerned about their family's safety, trying to get home, scared. So I'm giving them deliberately generous parking. So we have generous parking for 500 vehicles. And if we multiply that times an average of 1.5 average passengers, we would get approximately 750 people arriving on campus. Now, a lot of people, when they commute to work, it's usually just themselves, but then sometimes you have carpools, but then people traveling around, traveling with their spouse or their family or their friends, sometimes have 2 or 3 even as well. So a good average is 1.5. So 750 people just with that. But of course, if you bump up the average a little bit to possibly 2 on a higher end, you could even get to 1,000. Somewhere between those two numbers, you're going to have that many warm bodies actually showing up. Now, security is on top of things and redirecting people, just like at major large events, really getting people to park close and where they should go. You could probably squeeze in another 100 vehicles very easily, which means potentially you're up to about 1,200 people showing up, 1,200 fish. Do you have a net that can handle 1,200 fish showing up? And again, with these factors, you do have to consider the worst case scenario. Especially if you're going to start putting up signs at the major strategic crossroads where you will have a constant, steady trickle of vehicles coming up to your property throughout the day for 24 hours easily. That could easily be a lot more, so you have to plan on that too. Now, the nice thing about the front field is that it's smaller than the backfield. Backfield is larger, it's a little harder to get to, and there's some hilly spots on it. But you could easily make certain areas in it to an overflow parking in the upper field for easily another 400 vehicles with an average of 2 passengers. So that gives you another 800 people, meaning if you use overflow parking, you have about 2,000 people showing up. 2,000 fish showing up. How's the net going to handle 2,000 people showing up? And especially once you start putting the signs up, you could have that many people show up in 1 hour. Easily. From the steady stream of vehicles that comes through this area when they redirect traffic, yeah, you could have 2,000 people here, no problem. No problem. Just an hour or 2. So this is a major factor of realizing this is a very real potential. When these fish show up, do we have a net that is ready to handle 2,000 people? 2,000 people. And of course, they're showing up during the start of World War III and sun destruction, earthquakes, and all sorts of crazy events like that too. So where are they showing up? This is one of the major factors of we have 2,000 people showing up, potentially. Very realistically too. Where do we put 2,000 people? 2,000 people in the middle of a field here. 2,000 people is a lot. And of course, there's a 50% chance that the rapture is going to happen at night. So you got to have a place where you can bring them that's lit, that's sheltered. There's also a pretty good chance because we are expecting the rapture and the start of the tribulation sometime in winter, toward the end of winter, the beginning of springtime even. So that's a very wet time of year. And particularly down here in the south, that shows up more as rain. So there's a good chance of rain actually falling on the day of the rapture too. So you have to have a structure where you actually bring these people. You can't just have them out in the field and set up folding tables necessarily. No, you have to have a place where you bring them. A place out of the weather, a place that is well lit. You have to have a structure for them while there's an earthquake going on. And aftershocks too. So this has been the driving factor of why we are settling on customized modular domes. Heavy-duty domes, but these are large domes. These are 60-foot domes in diameter. And one of the main factors why we're going with these large domes is because they can hold a large number of people. That you can't do with a tent, and certainly not in an earthquake either. Now, according to the company that makes these, they say that a 60-foot dome will have a standing capacity of 520 people. That's a lot of people standing up. But if you set up chairs in rows, you could have a row seating capacity of 260 in one dome. If you had round tables set up for like a banquet or something like that, you would have a capacity of about 200 people per 60-foot dome. Now, because we know we're going to have some exhibits, they're going to be mostly along the outer wall and benches and a few things like that, our capacity will be somewhere close to a round table seating capacity, but probably a little bit more because we are trying to leave as much floor space open as possible. So we can assume with exhibits in these domes that they will have an average capacity of 225 people at the most. 225 people, that's a lot in one structure, particularly a very safe structure right here on this very important day when so much is unfolding. So this is why we're going with customized modular domes that we could easily connect, and these are part of the net that starts to match the capacity that we know will be coming. Approximately, again, 2,000 people showing up. Where do you put them? Well, if you have domes that will hold around 225 of them, you just need a few domes. And this brings up several other questions and just considerations that people have, and we love questions, but some people may wonder, why don't you just buy tents, and why just not set up a whole bunch of little tents? Those are going to be a whole lot cheaper than the domes. Why not just do that? That's what they do for field hospitals. Well, the problem with the field hospital setup scenario, or using a whole bunch of little tents and a whole bunch of little structures, is you're going to need a whole lot of little structures to be able to meet and match the capacity of 2,000 people. 2,000 people showing up who are desperate for answers. They're not going to be comfortably waiting in line. They want answers. They're going to be panicked. They're going to be scared. Where do you comfortably put 2,000 people? And if you try to do that with small structures and tents, what you start coming into is that you're making a maze. You're making a maze because you end up with more interconnections than is efficient. You get lost trying to figure out where they're supposed to go. And you also can't handle that with a skeleton crew of staff. Now, a field hospital, like they use for emergencies and even on state levels, such as pictured here, they are under the assumption that you have dozens of staff available who can be spread out in all these different structures. But in our scenario, where it's going to be all staffed by volunteers and EMS workers and fire medics and all those who they can round up right at the emergency, you're going to be starting with a skeleton crew of maybe 4, 5, 6 medics, at the very beginning. You're going to have a facility where they can work, but when you have a skeleton crew that small, you cannot throw them into a large maze and expect them to be able to work that maze because the balance will be off. And again, this is going back to the hanging mobile model, is you understand the factors. You're going to have a bare minimum, a handful of medical personnel who know what they're doing. You'll have a lot of other helpers who can do security and maintenance and that kind of stuff, but the real critical stuff like medical stuff, you can't get them lost in your maze. They are going to have to be in a structure suitable for where one person can be very efficient for a large amount of people, which means a large structure where they can see and oversee different things all at once. So that's why you can't go the cheaper route of buying small tents because, again, you end up with a maze. In most federal and state and county approaches to disasters, they are modeled under the assumption that you're going to have all your staff available. Or you could pull medics and fire personnel and law enforcement from other nearby counties where disasters aren't happening. That is the biggest flaw with a lot of county and federal style response plans, is they assume that there are nearby areas that aren't affected by the disaster. So they assume that all their staff can show up and work right away and be available, and then that you can also take injured elsewhere as well too. But when sun destruction comes and with a great earthquake and World War III going off, there will not be any place that's not affected. You're not going to be able to rally together to different county emergency response teams. You're not going to be able to do it because they're all going to have their hands full where they are. So they're not going to be able to put up any type of coordinated response whatsoever because nobody's going to be able to show up. They're all going to be tied down where they are because, again, the roads and everything affected by the earthquake and also the turning into parking lots from all the accidents. Everything's going to be very locked down except for on very small back roads that don't normally get a lot of traffic. And in areas that aren't susceptible to liquefaction by the earthquakes too. So understanding how many fish are going to be showing up and how many of those fish are likely going to be medical personnel that could hit the ground running right away, all that affects the decision to go with these domes. Yes, they are so much more pricier, but it is the only thing that would work under those circumstances. Because again, the value of a large dome is if you only have 1 or 2 or 3 medical personnel, you can put them in one room and be able to tend to different people, just buzz around between the different injured personnel without having to go somewhere else through a whole maze. You get a structure that's sized for the amount of staff that you have also, that can also hold the amount of fish that are coming onto the scene, 2,000 in an hour or two. You have it all sized and balanced just right, even if it costs more, which is also going to be sustainable and resilient because, again, earthquakes are going on too. So the domes match so many factors that have to be taken into consideration. Now when we look at the medical domes, they have a capacity of about 300 occupants. Because they're divided into specific medical areas of triage and the different categories of the injured, you'll have certain numbers of people in certain areas. And because of the beds and the equipment and whatnot, that limits how many people you can have there. But the medical domes will have 25 triage bays. And that's basically when the injured are brought in for triage, just in the immediate rush of all the accidents and whatnot, they'll be able to bring in the worst injured and have 25 different spots for that immediate rush of that mass casualty. Be able to have 25 dedicated bays accounting for that rush coming in. But also 10 treatment bays for those in the minimal category, those who are walking wounded. Be able to have 10 treatment areas in a separate dome just for them. And then in the patient ward, have 25 dedicated patient beds for recovery and observation. So the total occupancy is not much, but the capacity and the ability of how many people they could treat at one time is very good considering the situation. And again, because of the resiliency, they'll be able to keep on doing it without interruption during aftershocks and just sudden surprises with the sun destruction World War III going on too. That's going to be going on in the background all day long and days after this too. So considering that the capacity is 300 occupants with 25 triage bays and 10 treatment bays and 25 patient beds, that's very good. Very, very good considering the 2 major hospitals nearby. They're probably going to have a capacity of 0. Because when the earthquakes happen, a lot of people are going to have to evacuate those hospitals. They're going to have to evacuate those hospitals. And because of the earthquakes and just the interstates turning into parking lots, you're not going to be able to have the next shift come up. And I know one hospital is directly across the road from the city's water treatment plant, so that's going to get really nasty real quick. So the major hospitals are going to quickly reach a capacity of 0 because they can't work under those circumstances. So a 300 occupancy is really, really good. Really, really good. The library capacity, though, is where the bulk of the people will go, because those 5 domes will easily be able to hold 1,050 occupants. Over 1,000 people easily and comfortably within just the libraries. The 5 domes right here. 1,000 people. Very comfortably in a lit and sheltered structure where they are starting to have their questions answered and get an understanding of what is going on. These 5 domes include the Spanish library, which is also connected to the reading room dome, which will now hold a larger number of people. I've upgraded all the domes to a 60-foot size dome. Again, as I'm going over these factors that come into play, trying to make as much room as possible. I'd rather have more room than necessary than too little, particularly the more I consider that 2,000 people showing up is very realistic. Very realistic. Then the main library dome is where a lot of the core Rapture library information will be, and a whole nother one just for astronomy and time those subjects, but then a whole dome just for the disaster crash course for survival information, because there's going to be so many people who this is their first disaster, so you're going to have to bring them up to speed real quickly on how do you filter water, how do you wash your hands properly, how do you avoid infections, just some very critical stuff that they're going to have a crash course on real quickly, and someplace where they will literally be able to walk through this information in a short amount of time. This is where they'll get the handouts of the disaster crash course, but also the health kits, with also large posters giving them a crash course on this is how you can use these different things for your best advantage. So all 5 of the library domes will hold just over 1,000 people, very comfortably over 1,000 people. And right next to the survival dome are the relief domes. Those will have a capacity of 425 occupants. And one of the domes is going to be the situation room. Very similar to our videos, how we give information. Again, you're going to have a lot of people showing up who are confused, they're scared, they don't know what's going on, they don't know if they can make it back home, they don't know the condition of the roads, they don't know what's going on the news or radio or shortwave. And maybe they're hearing a little bit of how things are falling apart and they're wondering if they should get back on the road again. So Lord willing, the goal of the Situation Dome is to really be a information desk with large TV monitors for local news, anything that can be picked up, but also passing along updates from the administration, the comm center, of things that they're hearing on the radios and picking up, just alerting people, hey, you shouldn't travel on this road, or don't go this way, or this bridge is out, whatnot. Be able to give them information as it comes in, immediately share it to them in that auditorium style situation room. Again, with TV monitors and large whiteboards and just different ways to share it with a large amount of people real quickly. Again, because you have a lot of people who are scared, they don't know if they should get back on the road again. They've gone through the library, and now they just need a place to hang out and try to figure out what's going on. So they can go to the situation room without necessarily taking up room in the library. Or maybe they have someone who's being treated in the medical clinic and they just don't want to wait in the lobby. One way they could alleviate some of that is find out what's going on. They can head over to the situation room. Also in the situation room will be the information desk. Also letting people know, hey, here are different areas where you can volunteer right here. We need help in these different areas. Do you have experience in any of these areas? Also asking people if they've witnessed anyone being raptured. Be able to get a lot of those testimonies written down, reports taken, because people are going to be looking for loved ones and people who are missing. And so the more we can get an idea of things written on paper of what people think they saw or what was reported, you can't verify, but what was reported, and that is additional information you can pass along. And it also helps reinforce to people, yeah, I did see that happen. You know, there's going to be a lot of deception in the days coming after that, but the more that there are these written testimonies at these libraries from multiple people of, yeah, I saw this and this and this and this on that day, that, yeah, the rapture happened. It happened. And so that's information we definitely want to gather on that day as well, too. And then, of course, at the information desk, if someone realizes, I can't go home, I can't get back on the road, there's no way for me to get there right now, I need help, I'm displaced, I'm a refugee. So they can go to the desk and they would point them, go over to the next dome, which is specifically for people who are displaced. It's the displaced dome. And there'll be a bunch of picnic tables set up in there where they can help people figure out some temporary housing in the area, find out some temporary solutions, get an idea of what their needs are, just start being able to address those, because you will have a lot of people who suddenly realize, I'm stuck. I am stuck here at the Brook Cherith. I can't get back home. The roads to Birmingham are not safe. Everything's going crazy. The world's falling apart. I can't go anywhere. I need to stay here, and this looks like a safe place. And so having a place where those people who are going to be very scared, very panicked, be able to have a place where you can direct them so they're not making other people panicked as well too, but start addressing their needs and figuring out what they are at the very minimum. So when we put together the capacity, we have an estimated campus dome max capacity at 1,775 people at one moment. And not including the outdoor guests who are milling around outside in the green or in the parking lot. It does not count the outdoor staff, the staff that are in the portable buildings, and other non-dome staff, such as maintenance and security and all of them. So this is just the occupancy of those people who will be in the domes. Almost 1,800 people. Which, considering we have the potential of about 2,000 people showing up, This very closely matches the expectation of the amount of people showing up. At one moment, though, that's the critical factor, because with the library, it will have an estimated turnover of 1 hour, which means you should expect every hour you have a completely new batch of 1,000 people. Which means if you have a turnover about every hour, you're going to have about 8,000 people come through this library within 8 hours easily. 8,000 people. You're going to have a turnover in the library because some people, they're traveling home, they're trying to get home. So yeah, they'll check out a Rapture library real quick, try to grab some information, but they might only be here for 15 minutes. They might do a quick look around, grab the books and go. Because a lot of people are going to be concerned about their kids and their family and their loved ones and just being away from their home and in the middle of nowhere. Well, a lot of people are not going to be staying long. Some, when they see it, just because they know the Lord brought them there and it's so bizarrely unique, that they will stay 30 minutes, 45 minutes, go through all the different areas, particularly when they start seeing the survival dome, the disaster crash course, and they realize, yeah, the world is hitting the fan right now. And I don't know what I'm doing. I need this information. So there will be a number of people who will easily stay 45 minutes, an hour, maybe even 2 hours, trying to absorb everything because they know this is probably the last chance that they'll have to see it and come back this way. So on average, you should have a turnover about every single hour of fresh batch of new people coming in and the old people leaving. Which means, again, about 8,000 people easily in 8 hours. 1,000 people every hour. So you take that into consideration with the parking lot too. You're going to have potentially 2,000 people showing up within an hour. But over that hour's time, you're going to have people leaving, more people coming. You're probably going to have a good amount of equal balance of people leaving and coming, just because people are going to be in a hurry to leave. They want to get home. But you're also going to have a number of people who realize, I can't go home. So when they go to the displaced dome and say, I'm a refugee, I need a place to stay tonight, I can't go home, then a lot of those individuals, they could be encouraged to move their cars to the overflow parking and just free up some of the parking in the front area as well too. So you'll have constantly room opening up in the parking lot with the turnover. But again, I hope you can start to see this major factor of 2,000 people showing up very easily will result in 8,000 people the first day in the first 8 hours, which means you could have 10,000, 12,000 people easily showing up within the first 24 hours. And most of them will be going through the library very easily. Picking up resources and handouts, 10,000 people within 24 hours. The first day. That's not even the second day. That's the first day. But this is also very important because you're going to see the security situation unravel really quickly, where the second day you're not going to nearly have this number of people out on the roads because people aren't going to venture out into the unfolding situation unless they are really stuck on the road. So the first day is the best day. Because the second day, especially by the third day, everything's going to lock down. People are going to stay home. Communities are going to start setting up neighborhood watch and security barricades on the roads. So easily into the second and third day, you're going to see traffic locked down. You will really only have about 24 hours to take advantage of this huge draft of fish that are going to be so tender and who will come right to your net. Come right to your net. Easily 10,000 people. Are we planning on nets for 10,000 people? When we look at the estimated investment costs to get started, here's where things can get overwhelming, but I don't want you to focus on it. We are covering it because this is important information regarding the scope that needs to be considered, and so you also know what is involved here. What is needed to get started? These, of course, are heavy-duty domes, very large structures, which means they are not cheap. But they are the only resilient net that can hold that sheer volume of fish that are coming onto the scene in a very short amount of time, and to be resilient during that entire day when there may be one major earthquake and multiple aftershocks within that first day too. And of course World War III going off as well too. So it has to be resilient, which means it will be higher in price. Now, to get started overall, there are going to be some large investment costs that need to be put down on the table right away. There's going to be miscellaneous site costs, such as the power lines and water lines and well pumps and water tanks and septic. Just the septic tanks for handling thousands of people showing up, that's over $100,000 just for the septic tanks, easily. Again, you consider first how many fish can easily show up, and then that drives all the other decisions and all the other factors. A lot of money just for gravel and paving the road potentially as well, all the maintenance costs as well too. So just a starting ballpark for the miscellaneous site costs, not even the domes, just the setting up the site, that's easily $500,000 just right there, with a lot of expenses also not known at the moment too, so that could be close to $1 million just for miscellaneous site costs. This is a large campus. There's a lot of infrastructure needs when 2,000, 10,000 people show up and they're at a location for hours on end, 24 hours non-stop. There's going to be a lot of infrastructure needed for that many people during World War III breaking out. And then there's portable buildings. There's going to be a number of portable building shells that will be purchased just for housing the staff, the different shifts, possibly even making some bunkhouses for some of the refugees. A lot of your medical help and volunteers will be refugees themselves too, so you want to have housing for them so they will stay on campus. And then of course the outfitting costs of the shell, putting in restrooms and showers and walls and insulation and all that, furniture, bunk beds, metal bunk beds, all that adds up really quick too. And then there's about 22 portable buildings that are for support services, such as the administration offices, security offices, the multiple restrooms. Again, when you have 10,000 people show up over a day's period, they have to go to the bathroom somewhere. So you have to have multiple bathrooms, large bathrooms that can hold a lot of people. So there's so much cost just for that, just to outfit all that. So a starting ballpark just for the portable buildings, which are going to be support structures, that is easily over $1 million as well. Now the medical dome is going to have a lot of expenses just because a lot of things are very specialized as well too. And by the time you add in the medical equipment to outfit it all, and the consumable medical supplies and the medical furniture and all that is needed to get it all up and running, you're easily looking at over $1.5 million just right there for a medical dome, which is understandable because of the large expenses with medical. The libraries are also going to be very expensive, but more so because of the handouts that are going to be in them, and also the exhibits, the cost of them. The domes themselves are expensive as well too, but there's a lot of added costs because of all the handouts that are going to be utilized in the libraries. So the libraries, to get them functional, will be close to $1 million as well. But again, when you consider that the large bulk of people coming through the campus will be at the library, this will make the most powerful impact right there. So the cost is relatively low compared to the volume that's coming through. And then the relief domes, the domes themselves are somewhat expensive, but the costs really start rising because you're taking care of health kits and meeting some of their needs as well too. So that's where the costs really start adding up with that too. So easily $500,000 just for the relief domes and the relief supplies that go with that. And so when you consider the basics, the core needs of these different areas, and just purchasing the domes and the decks and the infrastructure to plug everything together, and the power and the water for 10,000 people, that's a lot. So when you consider all that is needed, that has to be working on the ground, working together up front, you're looking at an initial investment needs of about $5 million for what you absolutely need to make it work, so it could balance out with the expected number of people who are coming through on one single day. 10,000 people, 12,000 people easily. How do you have a net that will be able to hold that rush of panicked people, give them the information and help that they need, and not break and not collapse and cause a much larger disaster? You'll need something about $5 million. But friend, I don't want you to focus on that. Just ignore that number, because unless you have $1 million or can contribute to that, that's probably not your worry. If you can't change that, then don't worry about what you can't change. Only worry about what you can change. We are covering this information so that you know the scope and you know the different factors that have led to this decision, but also why that is the best decision for the expected capacity and the volume of fish that are showing up. 10,000, 12,000. How do you handle that many people in the midst of a disaster, World War III, and a major earthquake? For $5 million, that's pretty good. That's very, very good. Very, very good. But again, I don't want you to focus on that. We're putting out this information. If you can help with that, great. But I know most people don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. We have to consider it, though. We have to consider these factors because that is important in the planning of the nets and the vessels. Again, we are considering where we are, the placement, the environmental scenarios with the earthquakes and all that may be coming with the sun destruction, where we are, and that automatically clues us in real quickly of how many fish can be showing up. And once we have a good idea of how many fish will be showing up and will most realistically be constantly trickling in throughout the day for the 24 hours, realistically, we could have 10,000, 12,000 people show up at this field. What do we do with them? What are some of the different ways that we can tackle this in a sustainable, resilient way? Don't worry about the cost of the domes. If we have to, we will set up folding tables, folding chairs, and porta potties. We will start with that. We will start with what is in the power of our hand to do. We look at the field opportunity that the Lord is showing us. He shows us how many people can be showing up to that field, using it as a parking lot. So that's where we're going to start with our factoring of how do we handle this catch? How do we have nets to match this catch, this school, this draft of fish? If we have to, we will just set up folding tables and hand out the information that way. As long as we focus on what is in the power of our hand to do, we can make the books. We can have them printed. We can produce the health kits. We may have to do it in small batches at a time, but we can quickly get a large batch of the health kits and these resources. We can do that with what is in the power of our hand to do. And if we have to, we will set up folding tables and chairs and make it available that way. And the parking lot doesn't need that much work. It's when you start having to add structures because of the environmental and shelter needs and restrooms and all that. That's where the price really comes in. But we look at what can we do now? What can we start? What is the Lord showing us? He shows us the largest factor, which is the capacity. How many people can show up to this field? Okay, what can we do? We can produce the books. We can make the nets. Before we worry about launching out the vessels, we got to worry about the nets first. How many nets do we need to make? And so, friend, unless you have the ability to worry about the larger numbers, we are going to worry and focus just on the nets. We're just going to focus on the books. That's all we are going to focus on, and we will start with folding tables if we have to. We will focus on what is in the power of our hand to do, the shovel that we can pick up. Are we doing that when the Lord shows us how many fish will be showing up? Are we starting to make and weave the nets when He shows us how many fish are there? And so, friend, as we do the analysis and the factors of what is coming together, what is needed to disperse the nets, to get them launched out and let down into the deep, that drives our decisions. We can go forward step by step. We will start with the books, then we'll start with the folding tables, and then we'll go from there. But friend, I think you know pretty well that our Lord has bigger plans than folding tables and chairs out in the middle of the field with everything that He's been showing us. Everything that He's been bringing to mind, everything that He's been showing us in Bible studies of what is about to unfold on that day, the information that is going to be so critical to redeem such a powerful day when hearts are so tender. He is showing us so much. He's prepared a generator trailer. He's prepared a laundry trailer. He's prepared and had us rehearse so much with a clinic. And when we see everything that He has already prepared and is parked right on the edge of this field, we have a pretty good idea that He will take care of the larger issues when we get to them. When we come to the Red Sea, He will take care of the Red Sea. So friend, don't worry about the large numbers. Don't worry about the Red Sea. God did not ask the Hebrews or Moses to part the Red Sea with buckets and do it by themselves. No, He took care of that. He took care of that. He asked them to go forward, though. Are we doing that? We will let the Lord take care of the Red Sea, and we will do what is in the power of our hand to do. When the Lord shows us a vast capacity, a large draft of fish, do we want it? Do we want it for our Father's glory? Again, friend, this is very important. 10,000 people easily within 24 hours. 12,000 easily as well, too. Where are they going to be? They're going to be largely within these domes, learning so much information about the rapture, crash course on important information for themselves and their families. They will be here in these structures. And it is these structures where the nets will grab the fish. The fish that have come here, that have swum into these nets, this is where the nets go into effect. When we get all the fish together in one area, that's when the net is dropped. And the nets are the handouts. So let's look at the handout potential reach when we know that 10,000, 12,000 people will be showing up in 24 hours. What is going to be the potential reach of all the handouts that we can put into the hands of 10,000, 12,000 people? And of course, this is a factor of knowing how many fish will show up, driving how many we print and how many we need to produce to match the capacity of the draft of fish. Now, we have 4 main resources that we're planning on giving out. The health kit, the disaster crash course, serving Jesus Christ first and highest above all else, and why God. And one very important thing to remember with all 4 of these resources is they all have the plan of salvation in them. All of them do. Some people will come in and just grab the resources for the survival information. They may not be interested in the Christian and religious stuff, so they may just grab 2 of them, which means they still have 2 gospel messages that they're taking with them. Some may just grab the Christian information because that's more their interest and what's going on prophetically, unfolding right then, why they are left behind and all that. So they may just grab those. But again, 2 sources of the plan of salvation. Some people will grab all 3, maybe not the one that's more religious and Christian focused. They get 3 plans of salvation taken home with them. And of course, a lot of people though, because they see the value of this place and that they probably won't be coming back here because of what's unfolding, they will probably try to grab as much resources as possible, and they will take home with them 4 of the resources. Which means 4 resources that have the plan of salvation in them. What's going to happen with these resources? Because there's a realistic expectation of 10,000 people showing up on the first day, and the most important day, we're going to aim to print 20,000 of the Why God booklets. Again, understanding 10,000 people are going to show up, and a lot of people are going to see the resource and want to grab one for their spouse and for their neighbor and for their kinfolk. So we will most likely go through 20,000 of these real easily the first day. The first day. So we're going to try to reach 20,000 of those because that is a large main resource about the rapture subject that a lot of people will be suspecting just happened. So they're going to be very interested in that subject. Now with each resource, we have to assume a readership. How many people are going to read this when they take it home with them? Well, with this Why God, we should assume a readership of 10 people per booklet will equal about 200,000 views. Again, they're going to take it home. They will read it with their spouse. They'll share it with their neighbor, maybe their kinfolk who are having the same questions, who weren't able to get out to the Rapture Library. They all have these questions, so we can easily assume that they're going to be sharing this information with their close circle of easily 10 people. Easily 10 people. And if we print 20,000 of them, times 10 people, that's 200,000 views of reading this information. 200,000 people reading this book. That also has the plan of salvation in it. And another thing we have to keep in mind, friend, is once World War III breaks out and the sun destruction comes, cable TV ain't going to be on. Your phone isn't going to be on. Social media isn't going to be on. Infrastructure, power, the grid, it's going to collapse. Everything's going to be real quiet all of a sudden. People are going to look for distractions. They're going to want to read magazines and books and resources, trying to get away from the quiet that they're not used to. And so during the very long days ahead, while they're sitting around moping, they're going to be looking desperate for distractions. And so they're going to keep going back to resources, particularly ones that really pique their curiosity and that they also know the Lord brought their path across. They will be revisiting this book multiple times. And again, cable TV is not going to be on. People are going to be sitting around the campfire trying to stay warm because the sun's been dimmed out by all the ash from all the volcanoes. So what do you do when you sit around the campfire? You ask someone to, hey, Chuck, why don't you read that Why God? Can you read that booklet aloud again for all of us? I think we all need to hear it again. I think we all need to hear it again. There's going to be a lot of church folk who aren't going to be able to drive up to their local church every single Sunday. And they're going to have to worship together in local assemblies, around the campfire, around the picnic table, Bible study groups. And they will be studying this resource that they know the Lord put into their hand. They will be reading it aloud to new people who hadn't heard it before, sharing it with new people. And we can easily assume 10 people per booklet, easily, an exposure of 200,000 views with just 20,000 books. And again, if they start sharing it and using it in small groups around campfires, you could easily, over the long term, you could easily have 20 people per book for 400,000 views of that information. And also covering that plan of salvation. 400,000 people. With just printing 20,000, because of the unique location and the place that the Lord prepared to put it into the hands of 10,000 fish on a very important day. And those fish then took it to their homes, to their kinfolk, to their friends, and they shared it too. Serving Jesus Christ first and highest above all else will print 10,000 of those. Not as many people will probably take that, so we'll at least hit the minimum of 10,000, having those available for the capacity coming into the parking lot, with an assumed readership of 5 people per booklet. This has a lot more text in it, more article-based, and more particular to certain audiences who will be interested in it. And it will take more time to read as well too. So about 50,000 views we can easily expect with those booklets. From 10,000 getting 50,000. Over the long term though, again in small group settings and around campfires, particularly because it does deal with some very hard choices that people and Christians will have to make in the dark days ahead, to determine to serve Jesus Christ first and highest above all else. This will be a subject that will be brought up at Christian groups around campfires. The subjects are read aloud from this book, so the readership will increase over time, which also has the plan of salvation in it. The Disaster Crash Course booklet, we're going to try to reach a minimum of 10,000 with that as well. And certainly this will probably fly off the shelves real quickly too. Assumed readership of 10 people per booklet for 100,000 views. Again, this is information that they will definitely share with all their family members and kinfolk who are in the area and neighborhood, with their neighbors too as well. So a lot of this information will be shared with so many different people. And then, of course, long term, this will definitely be very important the more that things fall apart. So easily a readership of 200,000 people views of this book that also has the plan of salvation in it. And then we would like to assemble 10,000 of the health kits. Those will definitely fly off the shelves. Again, people will probably want to be grabbing one for their spouse and for their immediate kinfolk. So people will probably be grabbing 3 to 5 of these heading out. But it's also the information going out and keeping people from the clinic too, keeping them from getting sick. Very important. But it has the Gospel of John and Romans. We should assume a readership easily of 3 people per booklet. It's a little smaller font, a little harder to read, but important information. They will know that in the plan of salvation. It is a little harder to read, but easier to carry. And over time, because it is the gospel and the Bible, it will be shared particularly around the campfires again. Easily 6 people per booklet, so 60,000 reached through the health kits. But also keeping in mind that the health kit pairs with the Disaster Crash Course resource. Everything in the health kit will remind people and point them to the Disaster Crash Course booklet. When someone sees their neighbor has a water filter straw and some of the other implements in the health kit, they're going to be like, where did you get that? Oh, I got it from the Brook Cherith. And here's this information. Disaster Crash Course has a lot of great information. So the one will lead to the other, which is a whole lot easier to read too on the eyes, which also has the plan of salvation. So the use of the health kit will also bolster the readership of the print material too, because of the practical meeting of the needs in daily life, the practical information in the booklet as well too. But then see how it's paired together. Both these things, the health kit and these important resources that they gave us, also pairs with the spiritual information in the back of both these resources, the plan of salvation. And Lord willing, every time people use the water filter straw, they will think of how the Lord placed that into their hands on a very important day. Every time they need water, every time they wash their hands in the hours after the tribulation start, They will have so many reminders of the information that it's very important that they hold on to this information, and they better read it. They better read it. Then, of course, as I see the disaster crash course booklets and the survival health kit resources, that's also going pointing back to the other things that they picked up at the Brook Chair too, that God also paired with that information that he put into their hands, the resources he put into their hands. They better read that too, because it all goes together. It all came from the same place, prepared by the same God, for the same day and time that is unfolding right around them. They better read it all. And they're going to know that. All the resources point and will give them incentive to read the other resources, which means more exposure to the plan of salvation every time they go through these different resources too. So when we start considering the assumed readership that will easily happen with these important and valuable resources, we are looking at a potential readership views of 380,000 people at a minimum, up to easily 760,000 souls perusing this information in the plan of salvation. 760,000 souls. The nets that the Lord is having us focus on right now, when we let them down into the deep, they will reach far deeper than we can ever imagine. Far deeper than we can ever imagine. When we go forward in faith and launch out into the deep. Again, when we consider the placement where the Lord has placed the Brook Cherith right at this important crossroads and showing us so easily the potential to have a streaming flow of traffic of 10,000 people come directly to our door on the day of the start of the tribulation, be able to put this information directly into the hands, and then they can easily on these back roads head back to the major arteries and get back home, reaching out to their home areas when they reach them far beyond Shelby. Far beyond Shelby, as they start traveling the back roads, slowly making their ways back to their communities, where they're commuting from and where their family is, as they hear about certain roads being open or certain areas be accessible, heading back out on the road, taking the information with them, and sharing it with so many more along their path as they go out. And when we consider that this will be fanning out and spreading out along these two main arteries right here within a metropolitan statistical area with a population of 1.11 million, and the Lord is showing us with just a handful of resources we could easily reach 760,000 people, which is 750,000 people. And in the days and hours after the start of the tribulation, as people start trickling back out through this metropolitan area, taking these resources and these nets with them, the impact will be far deeper than we can ever imagine. Friend, are we working on the nets when our Father shows us such an incredible opportunity? Do we desire to have our hands on that net? To have our hands on that net? And of course, friend, if you've been with us the past 2 years, since 2020, you've seen the Lord's hand work when we go forward in faith, when we pick up the shovel to meet the capacity that He shows us of the opportunities. And as you see this map and this road and where Shelby is, that should remind you of a very important project that the Lord had us work on in 2020. Do you remember what that was? That was Operation Heads Up. Operation Heads Up in the middle of 2020, July, August, and September of 2020. The Lord really impressed at that time, mail out the information that you have prepared for the Rapture Library. Mail it out to all the churches in this area, as many churches as possible in this area. Give them a heads up of prophetically what is coming. You remember that? How the Lord worked incredibly to provide in so many miraculous ways to make this possible. In case of rapture, with our Operation Heads Up, we assembled over 100 kits, packets of all this information of our top booklets, sending it out to over 100 churches. Each packet included 50 flyers of Was That Really the Rapture? A lot of the core information, which is now in our Why God booklet, but also a copy of our Running for the Prize booklet and Be Ye Ready and When to Watch, as well as Wait on the Lord and Empty Vessels by Cherith's Brook, which is the same information which is now in our booklet Serving Jesus Christ First and Highest Above All Else. But back in the midst of 2020, the the Lord had us put out Operation Heads Up, assembling over 100 of these kits, and each kit costs over $15. It's because of the printing costs and printing them in bulk as well too. The Lord provided in so many ways, over 100 packets, and we sent them out, mailed them out to these churches. The Lord really emphasized, plant these seeds in 100 strategic locations around your community. Around your community. Remember, we looked at the map back in 2020, Operation Heads Up, sending out this information. We looked at the importance of this critical crossroad coming through this town, the location of the 2 hospitals, and so the first goal was to mail out packets to all the churches within a 15-minute radius, which was about 15 different churches. So we took it one step at a time, what was in the power of our hand to do, and so we set that as the first goal. We met that first goal. You'll also remember, though, that July, August, and September of 2020 was when the Lord was having us finish up the generator trailer. At the same time, He was having us spread out all this information to local churches. The generator trailer. And He was also emphasizing start work on a Rapture library, a place where people can see a lot of this information concisely put together, where they can easily absorb so much of it and have the print resources easily available. Start working on a Rapture library. At the same time, I want you to reach out and spread information throughout this community. And then once we reached the first goal, we were faithful in those steps. The Lord provided amazingly right on time to enable us to then expand it to a 30-minute radius from Shelby and a combination of over 100 churches. We planted the seeds of all this prophetic information. In case of rapture, we gave them a heads up to about 100 churches within a 30-minute driving radius of Shelby. Right when the Lord was having us start planning a Rapture library. Do you see His hand at work, friend, preparing for such a time as this? And now He is showing us handouts that will be used in conjunction with the generator trailer and the Rapture library. When 10,000, 12,000 fish come to this net, to this location, to these libraries, and then take that information and spread it out into a community that has already had seeds planted on this same information. Imagine the domino effect, friend. The Lord had us plant over 100 seeds, very importantly and strategically to 100 churches back in 2020 for a reason. For a reason. And so that when a second wave comes on a very important day, it's going to work very synergistically together. And people seeing that the Lord was doing something very large at a prepared place, prepared region for such a time as this. Again, the rural location of Brook Cherith is its greatest asset because it's on a road that won't be directly interrupted, has light traffic, but it'll still be navigable after the start of the tribulation, which means it's in an ideal spot to reach 2 major arteries where a lot of people will be funneling through when traffic is redirected, but also as they redirect back outwards, trying to get home with those resources. Resources that could potentially reach 750,000 people right in a statistical area where it can easily reach and impact 1 million people. And the Lord has already planted important seeds starting in 2020, which has directly led into the Rapture Library, where the work that He is now doing will water and build on what the seeds have already been planted. Friend, we cannot conceive what the Lord is doing right now, but I believe it will reach 1 million people. I truly believe it will reach 1 million people. When we review the major decision-driving factors that really clues us in and shows us the Lord's hand, how everything is being done so deliberately, especially since 2020, how we are very near a strategic crossroads location, and you can easily redirect people right up the road to where we are. Right to where we have parking for over 500 vehicles, which is very rare to have a place like that that can handle that many vehicles. 500 vehicles, that means we can expect between 1,000 to 2,000 people to show up real quickly in a short amount of time. And then keep constantly trickling in because of traffic redirected to that important strategic crossroads. There will be a turnover of constantly people coming in all during the day, the very first day of the tribulation. Right at the same time as World War III breaking out and a great earthquake and aftershocks after that too. So the combination of that many people with the circumstances is why we're going with the large, heavy-duty domes to handle that number of people, the nets to match the capacity of the fish that are coming through. And with those structures, we can comfortably scale it up to hold a capacity of 1,800 easily. And in a very resilient manner considering what is unfolding. Also considering the libraries are going to get the largest bulk of the traffic, which means that we multiply that capacity of 1,800 over a 24-hour period, knowing there's going to be turnover. So during the day, we're going to get a traffic of about 10,000 people. Again, because of the strategic crossroads location, there will be a constant stream of traffic going through this area. And with signs directing them, it will be non-stop trickle of people coming in, particularly the more that reality hits people of what has just happened. They will be desperate for answers. So there's going to be a massive volume of road traffic just traveling through this area, and they're going to be desperate for answers because they can see the reality of what's unfolding around them. And as they're driving, they're thinking of the potential ramifications. They're also being overwhelmed with the gravity of what's unfolding. They're seeing their world collapse. They know the grid's down. They're seeing accidents along the side of the roads. And who knows if they're seeing mushroom clouds on the horizon or something like that. Maybe hearing the radio cut off or something. They know what's going on. And obviously the events of the rapture, they know something supernatural, something biblical has taken place. They are going to be desperate for answers. They know something is going on that's not normal. So they are definitely going to be desperate for answers. And another thing about the potential for 10,000 people to come through the Brook Cherith is we don't have to necessarily have that from far off traffic coming through the area, because there's thousands of people that live right within 15-20 minutes of the Brook Cherith right here. There's a number of communities right around here, retirement communities down by the lake, whatnot. I know even in just a small precinct right here in Shelby, because I help with the voting, I know there's 3,000 registered voters right here in this little precinct. And of course, a lot of people aren't registered. So that gives you an idea. There are thousands of people within 15 minutes right here. And then the county seat, which has several thousand, is only 10 minutes from here too. So again, people there on work and business at the county seat, hearing about a nearby Brook Cherith with rapture info, they might be coming down this way too, on these back roads which don't normally have a lot of traffic. So we will be surprised at the variety of traffic and sources of people that come here. 10,000 potential people on the very first day within 24 hours. That is entirely realistic, very realistic. So our goal is to match the expected volume with about 50,000 handouts. This is the goal that we're going to work toward, probably in small batches, and if the Lord gives provision, we'll produce even more. Raise it up in 1,000 and 5,000 and 10,000 increments more once we reach that base level. So we're going to match the volume now that we know an expected volume, with the potential readership of 380,000 souls up to 760,000 souls over time. That is very realistic because of the value and importance of these resources, and people will know it. This is one of the rare resources that they will have answering the questions. When you think about it, you can't go to your public library and get most of this information. You certainly can't get health kits. You can't get this very tailored resource, and that's what's so unique. That's what's going to make it stand out, and because it's also in a very durable, well-produced book, it will last and be able to go through many readerships and being passed around as well. The Lord is preparing resources that will be read by many people, and they will know it's going to be one of the few resources that touches on what's going on. So they will treasure it. They may not all latch onto it right away, but they will know it's one of the few that even touches on these subjects in print form, and they have it, and they can read it anytime, around the campfire, in the morning, whenever. Easily have this resource. Reaching up to easily 1 million souls. 1 million souls. And so, friends, I hope you can really see how the Lord's hand is so evident through all this. I can't plan and organize all this. I can't orchestrate it. I can't work the way the Lord has worked through it all to prepare it all. Back in 2020, he knew the opportunity. He saw the fish. He said, launch out even then. Start getting the nets ready. And that was one major theme he kept emphasizing very strongly in 2020. To launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a draft of fishes. And that's when he really emphasized start working on the rapture info and a rapture library, a place where they could easily get this information, start producing handouts, start looking at ways to get this information out. right at the exact same time that he was also emphasizing and bringing together with the work with the miraculous generator trailer that he miraculously provided for, remember? All this at the same time. Why? Because he is planning something larger than just setting up folding tables in a field. He is planning something that's going to be durable, something that's going to be resilient, and going to be perfectly meet for the need of the hour. He is planning something incredible, and he's inviting us to be a part. And he started this back in 2020. And you'll remember we started the Operation Heads Up in July of 2020. And that's also when we were working on the generator trailer into August. And it was early September that we finally got the generator trailer fully operational and tested it with the laundry trailer. Remember? Early September 2020. And then just a few days later, the Lord really directed me, start planning on how you will move to a new location now that you have the generator trailer and the laundry trailer, because the Brook Cherith rehearsal site is not the final site. So at the same time he's preparing these resources for a new place, he's also having us prepare for a rapture library. He's also having us practice by sending out and planting all these seeds over 100 churches in a 30-minute radius of this location. He's having us practice all this at the same time, because it all goes together. It all goes together. And so, friends, it's been so beautiful just lately, preparing even for this video, just to review all the threads that our Father has woven on this beautiful tapestry, because He desires to show mercy, even in the midst of wrath. And He desires to reach out to so many souls and demonstrate His love, care, and compassion during this time, and that He has a mighty work that He's going to do, still calling souls to repentance, calling souls to His kingdom. And it is incredible just to see how the Lord has been working nonstop, especially since 2020, when we picked up the shovel. When we picked up the shovel in early 2020, and the Lord's been working the exact same project ever since. It is so incredible. And the more that we go forward in faith, the more that our Father can show us the larger picture of a little bit more beyond the steps that He is showing us. He's showing us a lamp unto our feet. We go forward step by step in faith. But He's also starting to give us hints and clues of what is beyond, what is down in the deep, where we are letting these nets down into. And how deep those nets will reach in the days ahead. Friends, there's a lot I don't know. There is a lot I don't know, but there is a lot I do know. Of all that our Father has shown us, all that He has worked personally, we've seen His hand in so many wonderful personal ways. We've seen Him work many miracles, providing in ways that only He could, choreographing so many things. And at the same time showing us the celestial time, showing us His heart, portrayed with the water bearer of Aquarius and Pisces, the fish that He came to redeem. Our job as the fishers of men. And it's all coming together during this time that is also portrayed on the celestial clock and echoed on the last page of the Bible. Our job as fishers of men. And the more that we know the Spirit's heart, we know the heart of our beloved, the more we will see and understand the time also. Because we will understand why the bridegroom is tarrying. We will understand why the bridegroom is tarrying the more that we know His heart. The more that we know His heart. And it should not surprise us to see here at this late hour that our Father is showing us an opportunity that is tied directly to His heart. Something very dear to His heart. That correlates to the celestial time, the prophetic time that He's also shown us. But foremost declared by the heavens on the celestial clock, it ties to His heart. The heart of the beloved. And friends, the more we are reminded of the heart of our beloved, and we are reminded of all that He has shown us and all that He has worked before us, when we look out onto the field, I don't see a Red Sea. I'm not worried about the Red Sea. I see our Father's hand at work. And I see our Father encouraging us, go forward. Go forward. You are about to see the mighty hand of God in ways that we have already seen in so many ways. All leading up unto this point. All leading up unto this point for a very important hour. And so we are going to do what we can do. We can go forward. We can go forward step by step. And that's how you cross the Red Sea. One step at a time. One step at a time. And so, friends, I want you to help me. We're going to rise up together. We're going to put all of our hands on the nets. And we're going to prepare these nets. You and me. Let's do it. We're going to start by preparing the nets of printing. We're going to take this in small batches, try to get 1,000 of each first, and then try to get up to a level of 5,000 each, and then 10,000 each, and then 20,000 copies for the wide God. And if the Lord gives extra provision, we'll make more. But we're going to work on these steps first because this is what we can do. 1,000 of each first. That's what we're going to aim to do. And this also drives home the importance of our loaves and fishes. When we put our 2 fish and our 5 loaves into his hand, he does the multiplying. He does the multiplying. We don't need to worry about that. We will just put into his hand what we can, what is already in our hand, the stewardship that he has entrusted to us, and say, Lord, can you help me help you? Help me help you. I want to be a part of what you're doing. You're giving us a hint of your heart. Of your heart here at this very late hour, and I want to be a part because I want my heart to echo your heart. And here's my 5 loaves. Here's my 2 fish. And Lord, I can't wait to see what you're going to do with my 5 loaves and 2 fish because I know it is your heart to do so. It is your heart to do so. And so as we go forward with the print production of these booklets, with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes, we'll also start buying the supplies that make up the health kit. We'll definitely get those piecemeal, and then as we accumulate enough for assembly, maybe one day we'll have an assembly party and put together a bunch of kits all at one time. We will go forward step by step. And again, that is how you cross the Red Sea. That is how you walk on water when our Savior says, come. You go forward step by step. And that's what we're going to do with all that he is showing us. Psalm 68:11. The Lord gave the word. Great was the company of those that published it. The Lord gave the word. Great was the company of those that published it. Friends, I hope you can see the Lord's heart cry and desire here at this late hour, desire to share so many demonstrations of his love, care, and compassion at a very needed and dark hour. How we can shine by leaving a light burning even after we're gone. How we can be a part of putting our hands to the plow, putting our hands to the nets, putting our hands to the printing press. And we can be a part of the great company of those that publish the King's Word. Indeed, friend, that's what we are as servants of God. We are bearers of the good news. We are his messengers. The Lord gave the word. Great was the company of those that published it. And friend, I want to invite you to be a part of publishing the King's Word. Last Sunday I was pondering on all these thoughts, and right when that Arctic blast was coming down through this area, it was really cold, but I also knew the air was going to be so crisp and so clear, and so I went out to the field and was looking up at the celestial clock, looking at the time, just thinking of what the heavens are declaring, all these portrayals, considering and pondering all the thoughts the Lord has shown about the field, the opportunities, all the things that I've been pondering on, all the desk work I've been doing. I've been punching all these figures and looking at it all, so I've been chewing on so much. And then to go out into the field and ask the Lord, do we have time? Do we have time for this prophetically? I know you're showing it to us. You've shown your hand so incredibly. You're also showing us that we don't have that many days and hours. There's so much coming through. And as I was out in the field looking up at Jupiter and Pisces, the 2 fish, right by Aquarius, the one who pours out the living water, the thought and question kept coming into my mind of, would the bridegroom delay the rapture if he saw his servants so eager to launch out into the deep? Would the bridegroom delay his coming? Would he delay the rapture? Would he tarry just a little longer if he knew and saw that his servants were so actively striving to launch out into the deep, to let down the nets? Would our beloved tarry just a little longer? And as I stood out in the field and was looking at the celestial declarations, the heavens declare the glory of God. They show his heart for the lost. And the more that we ponder on the heart and spirit of our bridegroom, the more that we know what is echoed so strongly in his heart, the more it will reverberate in our heart too, what the answer is. Yes, the bridegroom would delay the rapture if he saw his servants so eager to launch out into the deep. And we know this because this is his heartbeat throughout Scripture, throughout the Gospels. And the more that we are familiar with the heartbeat and the character and the person of Jesus Christ, our beloved, we will have a greater understanding of what he's doing here at this prophetic time. Luke 18:31. Then he, Jesus, took unto him the 12, and said unto them, Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and all things that are written by the prophets concerning the Son of Man shall be accomplished. For he shall be delivered unto the Gentiles, and shall be mocked, and spitefully entreated, and spitted on. And they shall scourge him, and put him to death, and the third day he shall rise again. And they understood none of these things, and this saying was hid from them, neither knew they the things which were spoken. And it came to pass that as he was come nigh unto Jericho, a certain blind man sat by the wayside begging. And hearing the multitudes pass by, he asked what it meant. And they told him that Jesus of Nazareth passeth by. And he cried, saying, Jesus, thou son of David, have mercy on me. And they which went before rebuked him, that he should hold his peace. But he cried so much the more, Thou son of David, have mercy on me. And Jesus stood, and commanded him to be brought unto him. And when he was come near, he asked him, saying, What wilt thou that I shall do unto thee? He said, Lord, that I may receive my sight. And Jesus said unto him, Receive thy sight, thy faith hath saved thee. Friends, here at this very late prophetic hour, it does us very well to reflect on our beloved, our Redeemer's heart, even at very important prophetic times. Verse 31, he told the disciples that we're going up to Jerusalem now. I'm going to fulfill, and everything's going to be finished what the prophets have written. Prophecy is going to be fulfilled right now. We are at a very late hour, disciples. We are on our way to Jerusalem right now. We are going to pass by Jericho, but we are going to fulfill prophecy very soon, right now. Here's what's going to happen. Da-da-da-da-da-da. It was a very important prophetic hour. There was a lot that needed to be done. He told them everything that would happen, a full list. And on his way to Jerusalem to fulfill prophecy, regarding when he, the Lamb of God, would shed his blood on behalf of the fish. He was about to fulfill that prophecy. And on his way to fulfill prophecy, he passed by Jericho. He passed by a beggar. In the midst of being surrounded by so many people, a whole parade of people, his disciples, they knew he was on his way to Jerusalem to fulfill prophecy. And yet, this blind man heard that Jesus Christ was passing by his way. This blind man did not know the greater conversation that Jesus had with his disciples, that they were on their way to Jerusalem, that he had to fulfill prophecy. There were important things that needed to be done. All this blind man knew was that Jesus was passing by his way. And what did he ask for? Thou son of David, have mercy on me. Thou son of David, have mercy on me. Mercy, that's what he desired, mercy. He couldn't see how busy Jesus was. He couldn't see the full size of the crowd. He knew there was a crowd there. They were all going somewhere. Something was going on. He didn't know that. That wasn't important to him. But this blind man could see the heart of Jesus. He had heard how he had healed lepers and the lame and the blind. He could see the heart of Jesus. And that's what he directly appealed to, the heart of Jesus. Thou son of David, have mercy on me. And verse 40 so beautifully portrays the heart of our beloved, of our Redeemer, the Lamb of God. And Jesus stood. Jesus stood still. He stopped the parade. He stopped the multitudes. He just stopped right where he was. Yes, he was on his way to fulfill prophecy, very important prophecy that all the prophets had spoken of. He had already told his disciples a whole list of things that needed to be done. But he was willing to stop and stand still when someone asked for mercy. Jesus stood and commanded him to be brought unto him. We're going to hold up the whole parade. We're going to hold up the whole multitude. Everything's going to stop until he is brought to me, and we're going to show mercy. Yes, our Redeemer will stop everything to show mercy, even at a very, very, very important prophetic hour. That is the heart of our Redeemer. And friends, the more that we go outside and look up at the celestial clock, what it's declaring, it should remind us of the heart of our Redeemer, the heart that a blind man could see. The heart that a blind man could see. And we should ask ourselves the question, do I see the heart of Jesus? Here at this prophetic hour, do I see it? Does my heart see it? Does my heart echo it? And if my heart doesn't echo it and can't see it, then my eyes and my heart and my life is not fixed on Jesus Christ. I'm looking at other things. I'm looking at other things. Are we looking at the world like our beloved looks at the world? As he looks at the fish, as he looks at the lost, do we see it as our Redeemer sees it? Friend, here at this late hour, as you go outside and look up at the celestial clock and you see Jupiter shining so bright, he's shining so bright right by the fish. And that should remind us of this passage, the day when Jesus passed by our way. If you are a believer in Jesus Christ, I hope you remember the day that Jesus passed by your way. And I hope that is very real and fresh, and the love that you experienced on that day is still very fresh and burning bright zealously even now today. And that will help you see the world, that'll help you see the lost, that'll help you see why our Savior is standing, why our bridegroom is delaying and tarrying here at this very late hour. Because the more that our heart echoes his heart, the more we will be content that the bridegroom tarries. Because our heart is echoing the same thing his heart echoes. Because we not only see his heart, we echo his heart. We echo his heart. The Lamb of God is the one who told us himself to look up, to lift up your heads for your redemption. When I stopped by your way, your redemption draweth nigh. Do you remember the day that I offered you the living water? Look up, lift up your heads, lift up your eyes and look on the fields, for they are white already to harvest. Friends, we can look at celestial things, we can look at astronomy things, we can look at geopolitical things, but until we can see like the blind man saw, we can't see. Until we can see ourselves as the fish that he came to redeem, as we can see ourselves as the one that he passed by our way, we will not truly see the time. We will not understand the time. We will not understand what our bridegroom and beloved is doing right now here at this late hour until we can see the time and the opportunity the way that he sees it. It's so plainly declared on the last page of our Bible, the last page of Revelation in black and white ink. It's so plainly declared on the celestial clock, but do we see it? Can we lift up our eyes? Can we look on the fields? Can we see the day approaching? Can we see the opportunities approaching? The fields are white already to harvest. Friend, I hope you see, I hope you feel, I hope you echo the heart of the bridegroom here at this late hour. All the trumpet calls that we have heard on the celestial learning journey have been echoing the same thing. Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. Go ye out to meet him. Your heart should be meeting him, matching him, echoing him. You should be rising up to go forward near to him, drawing nigh to him with a true heart. Drawing nigh to him with a true heart. And friends, this is why we need to trim our lamps, why we need to cast off the works of darkness. We need to put on the armor of light to shine bright, to model our lives and heart, our hands and feet after our beloved, after the bridegroom. Because we know he is coming, and the more that we draw nigh to him with a true heart, we will desire to echo his heart, and we will echo his heart. We will shine bright. We will be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. That light will shine bright and bring glory to our Father. And so, friends, let's rise up together. Let's trim our lamps. Let's be part of the company that is publishing the King's Word, and let's go out to meet the bridegroom, hearing him, heeding and obeying him, loving him, and serving him, first and highest above all else, echoing our beloved's heart till he comes. Maranatha.